All right, everybody, so welcome back. As Stress Awareness and Financial Literacy Month is observed, attention is being drawn to the link between employee well-being and business performance. So we do have in studio this morning HR strategist Georgia Donaldson. She's also the managing director of corporate options, and she's urging organizations to recognize that when employees are stressed or disengaged, it affects not just morale, but productivity, decision making, and ultimately profitability. You get that, business organizations, profitability. Georgia, good morning. Thank you very much for coming.
Good morning, Marlon. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. All right, so Georgia, let's get right into it. And let's speak a little bit about, yes, it is, we are observing Stress Awareness Month and so on, but why is this conversation that we're having so timely?
Marlon, let me just take you back about 6 months ago. 6 months to now, I have been doing work in different Caribbean islands. I've done work in Jamaica, I've done work in St. Lucia, Trinidad. And there's a common theme when I talk to employees. They're tired, they're frustrated, they're exhausted. And what's causing that exhaustion? It's unrealistic expectations. And what's causing these unrealistic expectations? So many pressures with what's going on in the world, with geopolitical events, so many different things. And these employees are feeling this level of frustration because they're not getting the right resources to help them to do what's necessary.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing that right across the board.
On that point, you think that there is an understanding of stress and the impact that it is having on organizations? Because I think that the narrative in the past or the attitude has been, well, I have to pressure you.
Yes.
To get the best out of you.
Yes.
Do you hold to that narrative at all?
Marlon, that word pressure, you know in the Caribbean what we say about pressure and pipe. Pressure does burst pipe. So pressure is important for us as human beings. We need to feel some pressure to do what is required. But what's not right is when the pressure is inappropriate. And when the pressure is not now met by the right resources to help us to meet that pressure, that's where we're seeing people are cracking. So it is this efficiency exhaustion that I'm seeing with people. They're not able to cope because oftentimes they're doing the job of two other persons. So you see job descriptions are being changed now. One person's job description is now morphed into that job description for three other persons. That's the issue.
Yeah. So let me go back to the question that I asked earlier. There has to be a greater understanding as to what is happening within the organization and as it relates to the employer and also the employee.
Yes, yes. And what is not happening is that leaders are not stopping to listen. So there is this relentless pursuit of output, and output is important. If you're not running a not-for-profit, then output has to be important and profits have to be important. But what needs to happen, we need to stop to listen to what employees are saying. Because when you recognize that there's disengagement, you recognize people are not coming to work, or they're at work, but they're just present, warming seats and not doing what's required, then you have to say to yourself what's happening. So leaders are not stopping and listening.
Yeah. You speak about the resources. What are the resources that are required?
Okay. So for example, let's look in manufacturing. Sometimes there are simple fixes that need to be done to equipment, and they're not happening because nobody stops to take the time to see that one simple adjustment can make a difference in somebody's life. The other thing we're not seeing is that there is always a mountain of meetings. So you go to work at 8 in the morning and straight through until 4 o'clock you're in meetings. Sometimes do we assess, could that meeting have been an email or just a short powwow? So those are simple things. What about technology? We're in the age of AI. How are we empowering our people with technology so that we can automate some of the work that they do? Those are just some simple things that we can do. And these resources do not require a lot of money. It just requires thinking.
Yeah. But speak a little bit about, because I know that usually when an employer thinks about, let's say, addressing the concerns of that employee, they usually think about cost.
Oh, yes.
So if it is that we're speaking about a program to set up to deal with the concerns of employees, there is a bit of hesitation towards that. So speak about the link between a happier employee and how it impacts the bottom line.
Oh, my word. So when you talk about disengagement and the employees who are not happy, there's a direct link and correlation between that and profitability. So let's maybe look at a bank. If you have disengaged tellers in the bank, you are going to see that the flow of clients in that bank is going to slow down, and some will leave. So that directly impacts your bank and your profitability. Let's look at production. If an employee is disengaged and he or she refuses to come to work, that is directly going to impact output in that organization. And if input is impacted, then profitability is impacted. So you cannot divorce engagement from profitability. It's very important to understand what's happening, what's the pulse of the organization saying to you.
Yeah, but how do you strike the right balance? Because if we are saying that people are burnt out, in some cases there are staff shortages, how do you strike the right balance there?
That's a great question, Marlon, and it's never easy, and for each organization it's going to be different. So what needs to happen many times in organizations is sometimes you have to set up a task force. Sometimes I hate to talk about the committee and the task force, but there's a place for the committee and the task force. So for example, I'm working with a client who that client has recognized that over the years they have been doing their employee engagement survey. And what has been happening is that employees are jaded. They don't want to talk anymore because they have not been seeing any action. So what they've decided to do now is instead of doing that engagement again, they're going to look at the comments that came out of the last several engagements and start acting. Do a dashboard and say, this is what you said, this is what we have done. So people start seeing real action on the ground. Those are some simple things that employers can do.
Yeah. Speak a little bit about managing people as, and the difference between managing people and leading them in a pressurized environment.
That's a good one. So there's a role for managing and there's a role for leading. So we manage things and we manage processes, but we lead people. So if you have a project team that's going, you're managing what's happening in the process team. You're managing all of your activities. You make sure that you have your charts and you're managing all of that. But how are you leading your people? You're leading them by setting the right expectations so they know what is to come. You're leading them by showing them what is the vision, what's to come. Because people will follow you when they understand where you're going. So that's the distinction. You're managing the processes and what's happening, but you're leading the people with your vision and making sure you have the right expectations.
Yeah. And you know, as you speak, Georgia, I think that in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm sure in other countries, but I'm going to use this term, right? When it comes to managing and leading people, we kind of put everything in this callaloo pot.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And I think that sometimes, while there may be a benefit to it, but I think that sometimes certain things need to be compartmentalized.
Yes, disaggregate.
Yeah,
sometimes.
and be specific and particular as to how you are going to address it.
That's true, Marlon. And when we think of workplaces now, we have so many different generations in one workplace. You may have 5 generations with totally different needs, and you cannot have one brush just painting everyone. So what leaders are not doing, they're not taking the time to stop to understand the demographics in their own organization. And that's one of the things that I say to our leaders. Stop to understand your people. Think of your own relationships at home. If you don't understand the people you're with, then you're always going to be at odds with them. So stop to understand the demographics in your organization.
Yeah. Let's speak about the importance of organizations such as yours and professionals such as you to an organization. I'm sure that certain business leaders may be looking at us this morning and may be interested. What do you bring to the table when an organization, decides, here's what I want to speak to Georgia and her team?
Yes. So one of the first things that I would do is a diagnostic. So I'd have a conversation with you. I sit down with you. We go through a discovery call. I have done myself out of business already because leaders will call me to say, Georgia, I need a training program for so-and-so. And after having the conversation with them, I say, you don't need a training program. What you need is a little focus group to talk to them to find out what's the issue. I also have seen, particularly where supervisors are bearing the brunt of the burden in organizations. And one of the things I'm doing in September, I will have a summit for supervisors, giving the supervisors some love, so long-deserved love. And we're going to be bringing different people in to talk to supervisors about how they can cope with the pressures that they're facing. Because when you think of operations in manufacturing, think of people in healthcare, they face a lot of burden. So we're going to be putting on that summit in September to talk directly to supervisors to help them to manage, because they're caught in the middle. They have their managers and leaders ahead of them, above them, and then they have the employees who are reporting into them. So we're going to be building resources for them to help them. So these are some of the practical things. I also do one-on-one coaching with leaders right across the Caribbean, because I have found that once you tap into yourself and you start doing that reflection, it really makes a world of a difference when you're dealing with your teams.
Yeah. How can people get in contact with you, Georgia?
Well, my telephone is 687-1473, and my company is Corporate Options, corporateoptionshr@gmail.com.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us before you leave us this morning?
I'd love to say to leaders 3 words. Stop, look, and listen. Plain and simple, because too often we do not take the time to stop. We do not take the time to look around to see what's happening with our employees, and we don't listen to them. So stop, look, and listen.
Stop, look, and listen. Yeah, stop, look, and listen. One more thing.
Yes.
I think, why do you think that, because I know that how we think in the Caribbean, and sometimes we do see the society today as a softer society than what existed in the past. And
yes.
as I was saying to Georgia this morning during our break, is it that these challenges have always been around, and we were better and hardened in a way to deal with these challenges, or, as I said, we are a softer society today?
Yes.
What's the difference?
Oh, Marlon, we've always had problems. There's no doubt about it. What is happening in the last 20 years is that we have had an amalgamation of problems at one time. So think of our generation who went through COVID. Think of our generation now who comes out of COVID and you're struck now with so many geopolitical problems. Think of a generation that is talking about, substance abuse.
Right.
So many different things in one space of time. So we're talking about an environment that's brittle. You've heard of Banya, I might imagine. Because we're saying that people are anxious, they do not understand what's going on, and we are not given the resources to deal with it. So young people do not know where to turn. So people are saying that young people are anxious. Yes, they are anxious because they have so many distractions that you and I may not have had when we were growing up at 12 and 13 years old. So that's what the issue is. It's an amalgamation of things in one short space of time.
But it is not something that people or the society or anyone should be turning a blind eye to.
Certainly not, because there are too many people now in therapy because they have not been able to cope over time. So we cannot turn a blind eye to it, because if it doesn't impact you at home, it's going to impact you in the workspace.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't impact you in the workspace, we will see it right across our society.
Yeah, because you know how we are in the Caribbean. We say,
Yes.
oh, he playing the fool, she
Yes.
playing the fool,
Yeah.
when that is not the situation.
Look
Yeah.
at the pressure our
Which
children
needs help.
face in primary school just to do an exam to go to high school. All of that. We didn't have some of those pressures.
Yeah,
So they're now faced with an amalgamation of pressure.
yeah.
Pressure and pipe.
Georgia, thank you very much for
You're
coming
most
this
welcome.
morning. We do have Georgia's contact information up for you. Yeah, we will put up that number again for Georgia. And as I speaking to Georgia this morning, I feel that the stress is disappearing.
Oh,
you know.
my goodness.
Right? So it's Georgia's number there. Georgia, thanks again
It
for
was
coming.
my pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So we do have this for you. Friendship Estate in Tobago from Jason. Yeah, that's a beautiful picture there. Yeah, Georgia, you may have to carry some of the members of your team there. Look at that side there. It's very calming. Yeah. All right, everybody. We're coming back.